I've always been inspired by examples of strong-willed and determined women who, in one way or another, left their mark on history. Queen Marie of Romania was one of the most beautiful and wealthy princesses in Europe. With Russian and British ancestry, she possessed an elegant appearance and a lively, resolute character. The queen had an opulent wardrobe and a personal collection of jewelry. This in itself is not surprising, but among the diamonds and gemstones, I want to highlight one extraordinary piece, a diadem made of pure gold. It was crafted between 1910 and 1920. First, pay attention to its shape, which entirely mirrors the traditional Russian kokoshnik. Without a doubt, this style was popular in Europe at that time, but for Marie, it certainly held special significance. The diadem is adorned with a floral pattern, and you won't find any diamonds or other stones on it. The delicate curls and leaves on the black enamel create a very intriguing look. A fairly large cross is placed in the center. This simple, unadorned piece of jewelry perfectly reflected the queen's life at the Romanian court. It's worth mentioning that young Marie wasn't too happy to find herself in her newlywed husband's home, where everything seemed gray, dreary, and bound by rigid rules. Ferdinand was often absent, and no one was in a hurry to entertain the future queen. The couple's relationship didn't flourish, and even the birth of a child didn't bring much joy to Marie. Over time, however, they found common ground and became close friends. Marie assisted her husband in state affairs and was involved in social issues, earning the love of the Romanian people. She followed fashion trends and often became a source of inspiration for the ladies at court. Thanks to her, elements of the national costume, such as dresses with traditional patterns or headscarves embroidered with flowers, came back into fashion. The queen outlived her husband and managed to take part in the political intrigues of her children. The cause of Marie's death was cancer, but many documents listed the diagnosis as cirrhosis of the liver, which fueled rumors from her detractors. For many years, the new authorities deliberately tarnished her reputation, downplaying her contributions, but eventually justice prevailed. Marie became the last reigning Romanian queen, and one of the 3 granddaughters of the British queen to retain her title after World War I. Marie's extensive collection was passed on to her children. The golden diadem was inherited by her daughter Maria, who married Yugoslav King Alexander I and took her jewels to her new home. The next owner of the diadem was the monarch's younger son Andrew, and later their grandson, Karl Vladimir. The diadem has often graced the head of his wife, Brigida. The diadem is occasionally brought out into the public by members of the royal family, but most of the time it resides in the Oplenac Museum. Another unique tiara belonging to the queen was the pearl tiara of Queen Elizabeth of Romania. When the reigning Prince of Romania, Carol, married Princess Elizabeth of Wied in 1869, the bride received this magnificent pearl and diamond tiara, adorned with 16 large upright pearls, as a gift from the Association of Aristocratic Ladies of Romania. It was crafted by Oscar Masson. Prince Carol became King of Romania in 1881, but the tiara was worn on numerous occasions and in official portraits by Queen Elizabeth during the 1870s and 1880s. Later, the Queen largely withdrew from public life to focus on her writing under the pen name Carmen Silva. King Carol and Queen Elizabeth had no surviving children, so his heir was his nephew, Prince Ferdinand, who married Princess Marie of Edinburgh, a granddaughter of Queen Victoria. In the late 1900s, Queen Elizabeth passed the Masson tiara to Crown Princess Marie, who soon began wearing it in many portraits. Crown Princess Marie wore Queen Elizabeth's Masson tiara until the early 1910s, especially after King Carol's death and King Ferdinand's accession to the throne. With the outbreak of World War I, which Romania entered in 1916, Queen Marie sent all her jewelry, including Queen Elizabeth's Masson tiara, along with Romania's gold reserves, to Russia for safekeeping, especially since most of Romania was soon occupied, and the royal family had to retreat to Moldova. However, while Romania emerged victorious from the war and nearly doubled its territory, thanks in large part to Queen Marie's efforts, Russia went through its revolutions, and the Bolsheviks confiscated Queen Marie's jewels, which were never returned. Attempts to recover the jewels were made as recently as 2018, but their ultimate fate remains unknown. We must also mention another masterpiece known as Queen Marie's Cartier Pearl Tiara. As I mentioned earlier, during World War I, she sent her treasures to Russia, where they were later confiscated by the Bolsheviks and have not been returned. As compensation, her husband, King Ferdinand, allowed her to acquire several pieces of jewelry to replenish her collection, including the Vladimir sapphire kokoshnik and her diamond sautoir with a 47868 carat sapphire. However, this lesser-known Cartier pearl and diamond tiara, featuring pear-shaped pearls suspended from arches, was actually an inheritance from her mother, Grand Duchess Maria Alexandrovna, who passed away in 1920, and it was transformed by Cartier. Although Queen Marie didn't cherish the Cartier pearl tiara as much as the Vladimir sapphire kokoshnik, she frequently wore it, including in portraits during her 1926 tour of the United States, and at her daughter Princess Ileana's wedding ball in 1930, often complementing it with strands of pearls. It is believed that this tiara was inherited by Princess Elizabeth, who by that time had already been divorced. A decade later, the Romanian royal family was forced to leave the country by order of the communist government. If she managed to secretly smuggle the tiara out of the country, Princess Elizabeth likely sold it during her exile or left it to her lover, Marc Favrat, whom she adopted just 3 months before her death in 1956. Another Cartier masterpiece was Queen Marie's sapphire pendant. This striking piece featured a sapphire weighing 478.68 carats. It joined the Cartier collection in 1913, when it was acquired in Paris and set in a sautoir with 7 other sapphires. The design was altered twice by 1919 when it was displayed in San Sebastian. Queen Victoria Eugenie of Spain, along with Queen Mother Maria Cristina and Princess Bourbon, admired the piece, expecting King Alfonso to purchase the jewel for Queen Victoria Eugenie. However, Queen Victoria Eugenie's cousin, Queen Marie of Romania, who had lost her jewels in Russia, bought the Cartier sapphire sautoir for her eldest daughter, Princess Elizabeth, who was set to marry King George II of Greece, from her sister, Grand Duchess Victoria Feodorovna. The following year, Queen Marie's husband, King Ferdinand, purchased a spectacular Cartier diamond sautoir, featuring the 478.68 carat sapphire pendant, just in time for the coronation of King Ferdinand and Queen Marie in 1922. The Vladimir sapphire kokoshnik, paired with the diamond sautoir and the Cartier sapphire pendant, became the most iconic jewels of Queen Marie in the 1920s, when she was at the height of her popularity. They were worn for her portrait by Sir Philip de Laszlo in 1924, as well as in countless other portraits. After Queen Marie's death in 1938, the 478.68 carat Cartier sapphire pendant and diamond sautoir were inherited by her grandson, King Michael of Romania. At some point in the following years, facing financial difficulties, King Michael sold the 478 carat Cartier sapphire pendant to Harry Winston, while parts of the sautoir remained within the family. In the early 1960s, the 478.68 carat Cartier sapphire pendant was acquired by Greek shipping magnate Stavros Niarchos, who gifted it to Queen Frederica of Greece. The Cartier sapphire pendant was one of the primary jewels Queen Frederica retained during her widowhood. For decades, the fate of Queen Marie's 478.68 carat Cartier sapphire pendant remained unknown, as it wasn't seen publicly until 2003, when it appeared at a Christie's auction in Geneva listed as property of a noble family. It eventually sold for 1,916,000 Swiss francs. The sapphire is now part of a private collection, though it has been displayed at various Cartier exhibitions over the years. Let me tell you about the tiara I frequently mentioned earlier, the Vladimir sapphire kokoshnik. The kokoshnik, commissioned by Grand Duchess Vladimir from Cartier in 1909, featured a large cushion-cut sapphire weighing 137.2 carats and 6 cabochon-cut sapphires, all of which once belonged to Empress Alexandra Feodorovna of Russia. The Grand Duchess wore this piece, particularly for a major portrait, along with many other large sapphire jewels. When she fled St. Petersburg after the February Revolution of 1917, the Grand Duchess Vladimir's jewels were hidden in a secret safe in her bedroom in the Vladimir Palace. Her son, Grand Duke Boris, and a friend, Bertie Stopford, disguised as workmen, sneaked into the palace and removed the jewels in a pair of Gladstone bags, which were then secretly transported out of Russia and placed in a bank vault in London. An inventory conducted by Gerard in early 1920 revealed that the Vladimir tiara had been damaged during its journey, with some pearls and diamonds missing. Grand Duchess Vladimir was the last of the Romanovs to leave Russia, passing away just a few months later in September 1920. She left her jewels to her children, dividing them by gemstone. Grand Duke Kirill inherited the sapphires, Grand Duke Boris the emeralds, Grand Duchess Elena Vladimirovna, Princess Nicholas of Greece, inherited her mother's diamonds and pearls, including the Vladimir tiara, and Grand Duke Andrei received the rubies, including the ruby kokoshnik. Facing severe financial difficulties and exile, the family decided to sell their jewels. Fortunately for Princess Victoria Melita, a buyer was nearby, Queen Marie of Romania. Queen Marie purchased the Vladimir sapphire kokoshnik for herself. Queen Marie of Romania adored the Vladimir sapphire kokoshnik, which became her signature tiara, perfectly matching her regal tastes. She wore it for numerous portraits, her coronation, and in her painting by Philip de Laszlo. In 1931, she gifted the kokoshnik as a wedding present to her youngest and favorite daughter, Princess Ileana, when she married Archduke Anton of Austria. However, she also wore it at King George V's Silver Jubilee in 1935. In 1935, the Vladimir sapphire kokoshnik was among the jewels exhibited at the Exhibition of Russian Art in London. In 1950, Princess Ileana took the kokoshnik to the United States, wrapped in a nightgown because she was too poor to insure it. She eventually sold it back to Cartier to build a new life for herself and her children, ultimately becoming a nun. Princess Ileana remarked, "It was both beautiful and magnificent, but my children were in need. As it stood, it didn't feed us, clothe us, or keep us warm. I couldn't even wear it." The kokoshnik was likely dismantled and vanished into the annals of history. And which piece of jewelry did you find most captivating? Share your thoughts in the comments.